Pat Morse Gund is an artist and a teacher. Her work is abstract in nature, and her most recent work uses figures inspired from her students. Her show recently hung in the Pumphouse Regional Arts Center, entitled It Might Be You, and was inspired by her students. Pat took a photo of each student, cut it out, and placed each student inside the work, and then asked them to tell her and describe what they might experience within that work. Pat explores growing up, her path to becoming an artist, and what is next for her. I'm Amy, and he's Brent, and this is La Crosse Local.
Okay, good morning. My name is Pat Gund, and in my artwork I use Pat Morse Gund because Morse is actually my family name, and I want to honor and preserve that. I was born I grew up in Osage, Iowa, which is about 100 miles from La Crosse, and then came to go to school at UW-La Crosse and graduated from there with a degree in art and teaching art. Now I live in La Crescent with my husband. How I got into painting, I just always remember painting. My mom was a visual artist for quite a while, then kind of morphed into a writer, a poet. But when I was little, she had a group of women that get together and paint, and I just always loved to paint. I just have always loved color and just the way the paint flows, and just always have. Loved it.
Your work seems abstract in nature. You know, it has some figurative imagery throughout. How would you explain your work to someone who's never seen it before?
People ask me that. They say, what is your art about? Oh, you're an artist? What do you do? So I always have to pause, and I have to say, well, I love collage. I love putting images together. I love color, texture, line, shape. I love negative spaces. So I guess I would describe it kind of a visual playground where you hop onto a color or a shape, and then you hop to the next one. I used to tell my students that composition is like walking across a stream on rocks, and that as artists, we want to move the eye across a piece of artwork. That's my emphasis, is to create kind of a playground for people to see, to move the eye around, find little unexpected color combinations, negative spaces between. That's the air between spaces. But this particular series that you're going to be featuring in your magazine, that was a completely separate body of work that was, I titled It Might Be You, because it was inspired by my students at Northwoods Elementary, my international students. So in this body of work, there's a lot of figures. In the art curriculum, we have part of the curriculum is art appreciation. So I used to explore the idea of what if we could flatten ourselves out, shrink down, and go into a piece of artwork. What would we experience when we got in there? What would we see and hear and smell and touch? And maybe we would taste something. What would it be? And then I tell them, I'm going to bring my shrinking machine next time you come. And be ready, because I'm going to shrink you down and flatten you out so you can go in. So the next time they came, I had my camera. Okay, here we go. This is the day. Here's my shrinking machine, and I'd pull it out. They would know they're going to be putting themselves into a piece of artwork that they're going to make. I would cut out the image, and then I would have these wonderful leftovers that had a hole in it. And I absolutely love those. And I decided I was going to keep them and use them someday. So here, like 12 years later, I had a big box of them. And this was the time. So I began to lay them out on the canvases, and sometimes I would enlarge, sometimes repeat. And that's what this body is about. And I titled it Might Be You, because if any of my students saw this body, and some of them did come to the pump house to see it, then I actually said to a couple of them, look, that one might be you right there. That's what these are about. And I use a lot of real beautiful, bold, rich color, because that's what children do, and because I wanted to honor children's art.
Just looking at your work, there seems to be like a whole village, a whole community of conversations, people going upstairs, people stopping and chatting. As you mentioned, your work was recently hung at the Pumphouse Regional Arts Center. You kind of went into it a little bit. How do you prepare for your shows, concepts, or even just the day-to-day?
Well, this was the first time I'd had my own body of work, a large body of work. Been in many group shows, but this was the first time where I had 19 of my own pieces. So started out with a friend of mine, Lynn Hobart, encouraging me for a couple of years, come on, go try for a show. At the Pumphouse, you need to apply, and there's a jury committee, so they look through your work, and I was chosen. So then I knew, okay, I'm having a show. They give you several months. They let you know when it is, and then you just work. When I laid my last one down on my last piece, I knew that series was finished. And in fact, I titled that one Finale. People think it just kind of flows, and sometimes it does. Most of the time, artists work very, very hard. Work, rework. It's like writing. People might say, well, how do you know when you're done? It all balances out.
I think it also helps just to have that deadline that allows you to kind of push that are really important for artists.
I have a group of friends we call ourselves the Rats because we're the retired art teachers.
Oh,
and we get together the last 2 or 3 years. We've gone to each other's studios to see our recent work, and that keeps us working. Plus, yes, having a show, that's a true deadline that I could just say, oh, got to get in my studio. Can't do those dishes, can't do that laundry.
We utilized your work, Triangle Girl Celebrates, on the cover of our inaugural La Crosse Local Arts and Food magazine. It kind of struck me as musical in nature, kind of remind me of a band, Radiohead. What is that piece about, if you can share?
This one, I've got the piece right behind me here. That is about my students. That is about composition. It's about size differences. It's about, there's pattern, repetition. So that's probably where the music idea comes in. It's about celebrating. In the title, it's Triangle Girl Celebrate. She has her arms raised in the air. She's in the sunshine. Really, truly, it's a celebration of my students and how much joy they gave me most of the time.
So you had this kind of a big flurry of activity. What's next for you now?
And that is a fantastic question, and a question I ask myself quite a lot. At the beginning of our stay-at-home COVID time in the middle of March, I was looking around my house thinking, oh boy, what can I do? I had some canvases here. I thought, well, ooh, look at that. On my work table here in my studio, there's some amazing shadows that are falling on that table. So I took a canvas, I smeared some paint on it, just used real neutral color, and then I laid my canvas in that shadow and began to trace. Then I moved my I moved my canvas, traced again. That's what I'm working on now. I have 4 paintings, and it's about shadows. And these pieces are truly non-objective, or what you might call abstract. I'm really enjoying this series. I was an abstract painter in college, so this is the first time since then, and that's been a long time now, that I've worked in a truly non-objective way.
It sounds exciting. So where can people find out more about you if they want to potentially check in on what you're up to?
I am on Instagram. I need to do better at posting more images, but you can go on Instagram and look up Pat Gund, Gund.
La Crosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you would like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at La Crosse Locals. Subscribe to the La Crosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We thank you for it.